What's going on, everyone? So the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs, two teams in very different trajectories, right? The Golden State Warriors are kind of in this influx, right? They just lost Klay Thompson. They're trying to make a move to win now. They're trying to make a move to put them in the best position to try to get potentially another championship in these Steph years, but at least remain competitive enough to kind of help Steph get him a second guy. San Antonio Spurs are a young, up-and-coming team. Got a real foundation piece. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, you can already make an argument, is a top 15 guy in the league. He's the best defensive player last year. I mean, I think there was a genuine argument for him to win Defensive Player of the Year. But both of these guys are currently targeting the same player, which is Lauri Markkanen. And it kind of begs the question of where would Lauri Markkanen want to go? What would be his preferred destination between the two? Because it kind of seems like these are the two teams pushing the hardest to land Lauri Markkanen. And again, Lauri Markkanen on either of these teams, I think, would be a beautiful addition, a beautiful fit. But the question is Golden State's window is a lot shorter than San Antonio's, right? Golden State, Steph is already 36. Like, he only has so many years left, especially at an elite level. Now, with his shooting and his abilities, handling the basketball and stuff, like, he probably could play till he's 50 if he really wanted to. But as far as being a contender and winning, it's looking more likely that the Golden State Warriors are heading down rather than up, where if you added a Lauri Markkanen to, say, a Victor Wembanyama and this young core of the San Antonio Spurs, you're probably not winning a championship this season, but you're probably not winning a championship this season regardless whether you're with the Warriors or the Spurs. But at least with the Spurs, they have so much more flexibility, they have so much more upside, they have so much more potential, and Lauri Markkanen would just slot in beautifully. I look at these two teams, and I just think if you're Lauri Markkanen, I don't know how you wouldn't want to choose the Spurs over the Golden State Warriors, right? Both play very similar offenses. They both have excellent coaches, right? So again, there are a lot of similarities when you look at the Spurs and the Warriors. But I just look at Lauri Markkanen being 27, so he is kind of at that middle point where he's not young enough to go through a rebuild, but he's also not old enough, or he's not that old to where it's like, I have like 2 or 3 years to win a championship. He could go play with the Spurs this year. He'd get his new contract, and midway through that contract, he could end up potentially winning a championship with the Spurs, where the Warriors feels like they need not just Lauri Markkanen, but another piece or two. Where the Spurs, they potentially have that on the roster. We'll see what, Victor Wembanyama can emerge and evolve into, right? What kind of strides does he take in year 2, year 3, and so on. Also, you have Steph Castle. You have, Vassell. You have these guys that have potential and upside to take that next step, take that next leap. But you could also always unload those guys if you need to, or you wanted to push and win more now. Not saying that they will. I'm not saying that they should. But I'm saying if that guy becomes available, say you have Lauri Markkanen and you have, Victor Wembanyama, and say Giannis becomes available and he wants to go, right? Like, you could easily make that trade. You'd have the picks, you'd have the assets, you'd have the players that a team like the Milwaukee Bucks may be interested in for a potential rebuild, right? Like, I just think the Spurs are just in a far better position for the now and upside of Lauri Markkanen, right? I think Lauri Markkanen added to the Spurs, maybe you're not as good as the Warriors, but I think that there's an argument that you might be. I think Lauri Markkanen on the Spurs with Chris Paul, with Steph Castle, with Vassell, right? You could still go make another move or two if you wanted to, and you're the Spurs. I think that they could be in the play-in. Maybe, you squeeze into the 6th seed depending on how other teams shape up and, how things fall, and then obviously health. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But I think at worst, you could probably be a play-in team. And Lauri Markkanen with the Warriors, they would be much better, right, than they were last year. But they missed the playoffs entirely last year, right? So yes, I like that, they added Buddy Hield. They added Melton. They added, Kyle Anderson, right? They made some nice moves after losing, Klay Thompson stuff. So I do think that they made some strides, but I don't look at like those moves as like, oh my God, the Warriors are back. And then even adding Lauri Markkanen, it's like, oh, now the Warriors are a true contender. I think that they would be very good. But again, I think the Warriors would still probably be in that maybe 5 to 6 range at best. I don't think adding Lauri Markkanen all of a sudden makes the Warriors a top 3 team in the Western Conference. I think adding Lauri Markkanen would maybe take them from, anywhere from the 6 to 9 range to maybe lock them into the 5 or 6. Maybe at best they get to the 4, right? So now you could argue experience, the Warriors and Steph and all them being in the playoffs, right? They kind of know what to expect. They've won championships. You got Draymond. I just look at what would Lauri prefer, right? Warriors definitely would give you more of like a win now opportunity, right? Your window's shorter. Again, Warriors, I think, would be better than the Spurs. I think that there's, an argument with the Spurs, but I think the argument is a lot more of a mystery, right? Because you are kind of banking on Victor taking significant strides, right? If he takes huge strides, then yes, I think you could be in that conversation as being better than the Warriors. But if he just takes even slight strides, which would still be incredible, right? Year 2, I don't know if overall the Spurs would be better because you are relying on Stephon Castle to be great. You're relying on, Vassell to be great. You're relying on Chris Paul to kind of be the piece to put it all together, right? And can he hold up in his legs? You'd be asking more from him. So the Warriors would definitely give him more of a, hey, we're trying to win now. And look, you get the right matchups, the ball falls your way, you get a couple breaks. I don't think anyone would be utterly shocked if the Warriors were to pull off a miracle and end up winning a chip, right? I mean, that 2022 team, most didn't think we're actually going to win it, but no one was surprised that they won, right? Everyone was just kind of like, well, yeah, they still have Steph, they still have Draymond, right? They still have Clay, they still, Andrew Wiggins really stepped up and was great. So, again, I don't think anyone would be shocked because Steph is still that good. They still have Draymond Green. They added some nice pieces. But I just think for the upside and potential to win potentially multiple championship titles, I think Lauri Markkanen should go with the Spurs. But also a big thing with Lauri Markkanen is I don't think he's the second best player on a championship team, right? So the thing about the Warriors is Lauri Markkanen is probably your second best player, right? Where with the Spurs, Lauri Markkanen, yes, momentarily is probably your second best player, but again, the Spurs have the potential to go get that second guy to make Lauri Markkanen your third guy. Or, if one of these guys, Vassell takes another leap, or, Castle comes in and he's as good. I think Castle has the potential to be the best player in this draft. Now, I'm not saying he'll be that out the gate in year 1, but I think the potential is there. And I don't think anyone would be surprised if Stephon Castle ends up becoming that. So you could end up just through natural, just progression through, a year or two, Lauri Markkanen could just naturally become the second best guy, or you could go trade for that. Like I said, you could go take Johnson. Well, you probably have to take Johnson and other pieces to go get Markkanen, but you could take, if you needed to, Vassell or Castle or both, and go get that other star. So now you got Lauri Markkanen. So I just think that the Spurs just provide a better now and long-term outlet, right? I just think that, with Lauri Markkanen being added to the Spurs, I think he'd still get the same utilization, if not maybe more. I think he would have an excellent time to have Victor Wembanyama as his, kind of the two of them kind of being the two main guys, and all the things that, all the ground that Victor covers, like on the defensive side and stuff like that. I just think Lauri Markkanen, if I was him, I would probably choose the Spurs. And this is as somebody that's unbiased, right? I'm not a Warriors fan, I'm not a Spurs fan. Like I just look at, because you got to keep in mind, Lauri Markkanen is, after this season, a free agent, or he can be. So, obviously the Jazz, they want to trade him to the best package available, which I think you can make an argument the Warriors would probably present the better package, just because I think that, the Spurs would be reluctant to trade guys, like a Vassell, like a Castle, in a trade for Lauri Markkanen, where I think the Warriors would probably trade a Kuminga and a Moody if push came to shove and they needed to get it done, just to try to, again, capitalize on Steph's window right now. So I do think that the Warriors would more likely be willing to give up more than the Spurs would for Lauri Markkanen. But again, they're in very different positions. The Warriors are in a, hey, we need to try to win now, where the Spurs are more in a position of like, we can be patient, we have time. So, of course, that just by logic makes sense. But I just think that, Lauri Markkanen, even if the Warriors do add the better package, Lauri Markkanen has a say. Because if he's like, because the Spurs are going to have cap space, right? So if he's like, I don't know if I would prefer to go to the Spurs than the Warriors, that might take the Warriors out of the conversation, right? Because the Warriors might be like, we don't want to run the risk of trading everything for him, and then he just goes, runs and plays with the Spurs, right? Like he just stays around for the rest of the season, and then all of a sudden he's a Spur, and now the Spurs get him for nothing, right? So the Spurs could easily work it out to where they could get him one way or the other. But also it begs the question, is Lauri Markkanen the right piece for the Spurs to go make that trade, right? Because I do think that is a genuine argument, right? Lauri Markkanen, I think, is a guy that, yes, he is great. He's an excellent player. And the beauty of him is he doesn't need the ball, right? He's so good off ball. He won't take away from if you were to get another star, or if Vassell became, emerged into that star, or, Castle emerged into that star. He's not going to take away from those guys. Those guys can still shine and do their thing, while Lauri Markkanen's still chipping in and giving you 20 a game, right? Like, so that's the beauty of him. But again, is he the best allocation of assets at the moment currently? That I don't know. That I don't think it is. I don't hate it. Like, if the Spurs were to trade for Lauri Markkanen, great. I think it's a great pickup. But I don't think it's something that is like, I think that there's questions about like, okay, are you better off waiting for something better, right? Because, the Spurs, yes, they have picks and stuff like that, but as far as like players and contracts, that is the question, right? Like, because again, do you really want to give up Vassell? Do you really want to give up Castle, right? Beyond Johnson, it's like, what other pieces are you really willing to give up that actually have enough salary to go get a tier guy? So it's like, do you just be patient, let things play out? If the Warriors want Markkanen, let him go to the Warriors, and you just kind of continue to build your growth and your upside. Like, Chris Paul came to the Warriors because he understands the situation they're in. They need a mentor. They need somebody that can kind of, help these young guys grow and develop. You got Castle, you got Vassell, right? Chris Paul's going to do wonders for those two. Chris Paul gets his little bag for the season. I think that Chris Paul was one of the best signings that the Spurs could have made. Like, genuinely, I think it was a brilliant move by the Spurs. And, adding Lauri Markkanen, Markkanen, Chris Paul, Victor Wembanyama, I mean, that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. And I genuinely think that the Spurs could be a top 6 team, more likely probably a play-in team, but I wouldn't be shocked if they were a top 6 team, right? If Chris Paul can stay healthy, again, Victor kind of takes those strides. You add in Lauri Markkanen, you're getting another 20 to 25 point a game guy with a guy in Chris Paul who still can wheel and deal with the best of them, right? So I do think that there is an argument, but I personally am like, I think the Spurs should probably just wait off. But as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Are you somewhere in between? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.